Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The stock market hits another record high. Is it a bubble or a boom? And the next battle for the Trump administration is going to be taxes. Not being able to get any help from the GOP, President Trump turns to unlikely allies, Chuck and Nancy. A lot of people were miffed by the move by President Trump, calling in Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, basically offering an olive branch. I'm not sure where I stand with it yet, but you're not going to get any help from Ryan and McConnell and the GOP. What do you think about that?
I'm agreeing with the latter point that Ryan and McConnell have done nothing to help move the party forward. McConnell is supposed to be the head of the Senate. Ryan's supposed to be the head of the House. They're supposed to have the ability to get the majority that's needed to take advantage of the fact that the Republicans control the House by a very substantial majority, Senate by a very small majority. Instead, they have worked against their own president. It almost seems like they're traitors against the President of the United States. So you know what he did? He said, look, instead of fighting a two-front war, I'm going to go and sit down with Pelosi, I'm going to go sit down with Schumer, and say, look, let's do something that's in both of our interests. You can take an interest, you can say you did it, I'll say I did it. The important thing is we will get something done. And I think he's going to continue to do that on issues that he wants to move forward, whether it's getting rid of Obamacare, whether it's a new tax structure, whether it's developing a major infrastructure. I think he's learning the fact that he's not getting the help from his own party that he thought he would. So he's doing exactly what he should do, and I congratulate him for it.
You do?
Yes, sir.
Are you going to be able to get what you want from Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi?
Let me put it this way. If he can just get a handful of people in the Democratic Party who feel that they are benefiting by this from a standpoint of their local regions, their local districts, and the fact that they want to see our economy succeed. You know, they're not foolish. They know that right now the Democrats are in deep bandini, as they say. Nobody likes the Democrats. They have the lowest number of highly qualified named people in that party. If they don't do something, they're dead meat at the midterms, which are coming up in November of 2018. So he's wanting to trade off their hope that they'll get some benefit from things that are going to move forward. If we have a reasonably decent tax structure, if we have the other things that I mentioned all happening, and things are moving forward, we are employing more people today. The last quarter came up the highest we've had in a couple of years, so things are looking better. And the Democrats aren't stupid. They see that things are getting better, not in a big way, but enough to give Trump the benefit.
One thing that you normally do not hear come out of a Republican president's mouth, he said specifically that the rich are not going to benefit from my new tax plan. I don't know where you stand with your feeling on that. He said we're going to help out the middle class, which is a great thing to say, but you don't normally hear. Normally a Republican will say we're cutting taxes for everybody across the board. Again, not very Republican-esque.
I think
is that okay?
It's propagandistic. That's basically, well, who are the rich? A guy that's making $100,000 a year, or a guy that's making $1 billion a year? He's not giving anything away by saying we're not going to do it for the rich. I think he also realizes that reducing our capital gains tax from 35% 15% is ridiculous. It ain't going to happen.
But you always shoot for something that you're not going to expect and then
yes.
end up where you thought you would be. Maybe 20%. You think that's reasonable?
I think 20% is reasonable. It's more reasonable is trying to get almost $2 trillion of American money that's sitting in foreign banks. You know, I blame...
And that's how you do that, is by reducing the corporate income, or the corporate
But the point is,
tax.
The average American has been blinded by the fact that it hasn't only been two horrible terms of Obama, but a know-nothing term of George W. Bush. I think Clinton was better. I mean, he was shrewder. I think he was much more clever in things that were done. Of course, my favorite president now, as far as looking back 30, 40 years, is Ronald Reagan. The more I read about him, the more I see what he'd done. This man was a magician.
Yeah, he was battling a House and Senate controlled by Democrats for the previous 35, 40 years.
But look what he accomplished. When he came in, first of all, nobody expected this second-rate movies. He wasn't a big movie star. He was a movie player. And then he became a spokesman for General Electric, and a good-looking guy. He was always very congenial, very friendly. And then he comes in, and when does he come in? He comes after to me, the worst president we ever had, Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter, was, by the way, for those who may not know this, was responsible for the Ayatollah Khomeini being let out of house arrest.
We wouldn't be dealing with the Iran mess right now, most likely.
He really cut the ground out from under the Shah. Anyway, the point is that when Reagan came in, we had the highest inflation we've ever had and out of control. He came in and nobody was doing anything about it. The Federal Reserve Board had given up. We were really we were in very bad shape at that time. And do you know what he did? He found the fact that the Tip O'Neill, who was the House Speaker at the time, a Democrat, he said, look, let's do it for the sake of the United States of America. And Tip O'Neill agreed with him. So the country, for 6 out of the 8 years, the first 2 years were a little shaky, but as you would expect a new president to have to face, both on foreign policy and domestics. And he had foreign policy problems as well as domestic problems. But the last 6 years were unbelievable.
But his acting experience also helped him to communicate with the American people in ways that no other president ever has and maybe never will.
Yeah, you are right about that, but acting can be phony or it can be for real.
Oh, he came across as the real thing.
I think he was. I knew somebody when I went to high school, my football coach was his roommate at Eureka College up in Northern Illinois. He was the finest guy. He'd always go to bat for anybody that needed his help. He was a real thing. There was nothing phony about Ronald Reagan.
Okay, moving on to a little more ominous story. The American U.S. national debt just passed $20 trillion.
Correct.
We expected a president that is a businessman to come in and fix some of these things. We're going through another debt ceiling raise and pushing the can down the road again. Are we ever going to actually tackle this budget and get this under control?
Well, the thing is, we have a $20 trillion debt. It's just going to keep going up because why?
And let me ask you this. The majority of our debt is owed to the Federal Reserve, which is a private corporation which handles the money printing.
Well, part of it, the $3 trillion is, yes.
And the Chinese and some other countries, Japan as well.
And a lot of it is also owed to the American, about 40% is owed to Americans.
So how do you go about getting rid of a $20 trillion? Can you ever get rid of a $20 trillion debt?
Well, if you cut half the agencies that we have in this country, do you know how much we've done?
There's not one agency or one job at one of these agencies that anyone will ever cut. They never can.
No, I disagree with you. I think it takes a lot of guts. It takes somebody who says, look, these agencies are nothing but making jobs for people who are putting it away for themselves. They have no... if somebody loses his seat in Congress, he can get a good job of an organization that'll be using him for their own propaganda purposes. So the point is, right now, I don't think that $20 trillion debt is killing us because we have such a huge, huge gross domestic product. But the point is Trump going to say, look, half the agencies we have aren't worth anything. You've got to face the facts. A justification for every job that's in Washington. A good example is Environmental Protection Agency. You know, the Environmental Protection Agency has the power of a Gestapo in Germany. Nobody could argue with them. Whatever they wanted to do, they could do. They could shut down businesses. They keep oil from out of the country. You know, they
Divert rivers, stop waterways,
exactly. And I remember
take over national parks.
the woman that was in charge of the EPA was asked. She said, "Don't you realize what you're doing is killing our business?" You know what her answer was? "That's not my department." So that tells you everything. We had, I make no bones about the fact that I think Jimmy Carter was the worst because he put us in a terrible position on foreign policy as well as did nothing to stop this runaway inflation. Secondly, of course, is Obama. Because I personally believe he deliberately wanted to see this country go down.
Well, I think it's pretty much standard record that we did go down a few notches.
Yes, but
we doubled our debt from 10 trillion to 20 trillion.
Yeah, but the question is, did he do it just because he was stupid and accidental? No.
No, he's not stupid.
No, I think he did it. He had a deliberate
chip on his shoulder.
Yeah? That's exactly right. And now, I know there's a lot of controversy about Trump. I still have great hope. I really feel he's feeling his way around. I think he'll turn out to be a great president. And I think he started out just a little while ago when he made that fabulous speech to the United Nations. For the first time ever since they were founded in February of 1945, a head of a major country came up and says, "I'm warning you, you either do it our way, which is the good way, or we're coming after you."
Interesting development recently on the global warming front. Some of the IPCC climate meteorologists and professors have admitted that their scientific models, which are computer models, which is funny because we watch these hurricanes and 24 hours before the hurricane hits Florida, they don't know if it's going to hit the west coast, the east coast, or up the middle, but yet they would tell us that 50 years from now, we're all going to be underwater. Now they've come out and admitted that they may have been exaggerating a little bit. We kind of knew that by gut instinct all along. The world is, the Earth is 4 billion years old. It's gone through climate adjustments for the entire time. What do you make of this final realization that maybe they were a little bit overwhelming with their data?
I don't think they were overwhelming. I think they were deliberately trying to hurt this country. I really think this group that came out about what I call climatological purity. Now, there's no question we've had our problems. But for God's sake, the Earth is 4.5 billion years old. It'll probably be around for another 4 billion, and one of these days the sun's going to flame out and everybody goes. But I don't think you and I or anybody living today will have to worry about that. But the point was, it was done deliberately to hurt this country, because everything that was done since Obama came into office has been to reduce our productive capability. And the greatness of the United States has been productive capability. You know, after the Second War, when we developed our Marshall Plan, we developed the losers as well as the winners of the war, so we could keep markets going and keep the world back on their feet.
And to end this segment about global warming, they don't do a thing about China or India. It just only comes down to the United States. So that's your hypocrisy in a nutshell right there.